Welcome to the Things I Want My Daughters to Know podcast, the podcast redefining women's health, one unfiltered conversation at a time. I'm your host, Jacqueline Rose, and every week I'll sit down with leading women's health experts and real women to share their lived experiences, bust health myths, challenge outdated and uninformed narratives, and explore what's really possible for women. We'll talk about periods, fertility, menopause, hormones, aging, and everything in between. This podcast is for every woman who ever felt confused, dismissed, or left out of the conversation about her own health. It is a space to celebrate women, break the silence, and open up conversations between mothers, daughters, sisters, and friends. Please hit the follow or subscribe button so you don't miss an episode, and share this podcast with your daughters, family, and friends. Let's get on with the episode. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Things I Want My Daughters to Know podcast. And today we have a really fascinating guest. And this is a little bit different to some of the other guests we have, because I often bring in professionals or people who have worked in the women's health field in all different ways for a while. Today is something that I'm really excited for you listeners to hear, and that is a personal lived experience story. I don't want our conversations to always stay in that professional sphere. You as women have your own lived experiences, and I really want to be able to share other women's lived experiences so that you know you are not alone, that you are not some unicorn fighting against the system or trying to get answers. Today's guest really is someone who has gone on her own health journey, has really fought for what she needs, and I'm really excited for you to hear her story. So Jessa, welcome to the podcast. Tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and then we'll get into our conversation.
Thank you so much, Jacqueline. I'm really excited to be here. My name's Jessa. I'm a wife. I'm a stay-at-home mom. Definitely not a professional in this field, but my experience is all lived, just gone through, trying to figure it out as I go. I started having issues when I was 11. I had debilitating pain from my period started very early. And I was already having terrible pain around them. Of course, even just my regular pediatrician, it was, well, cramping's normal with pain. And I was already being told that maybe I was being too dramatic. That's kind of how it felt anyways. Maybe those weren't the exact words that were used, but even as an 11-year-old, I got the message.
Yeah.
So that was a big deal.
And it's amazing that messaging started so young, and when you were literally beginning your menstrual cycle, that this is normal, this is what it is. Take more painkillers, take more, whatever it is, deal with it, and just get on with it.
And just move. Yeah. And it was, I think it was especially because I was so young, even dealing with that part, with it being a part of a woman's health issue, it was almost like providers had blinders on. They would not, I would not even have people agree to see me because I was so young. Like OBGYN specialists would refuse to come and see me because I was so young.
Yeah. And also at such a young age, so many doctors will say, this is just the beginning, wait a few years until it all gets normal and your hormones calm down. And so it's sort of like, because you are so young, there is like, let's give it some time. That's like the wait and see approach.
Right. That's very, very much what it was. It was the wait and see approach. Yeah. The problem with that is that I, at about 11, 12, somewhere in there, I ended up having a severe pain issue that sent me to the hospital. It had me in the fetal position, screaming, crying. They could not figure out what was wrong. You know, it wasn't appendicitis. It wasn't all of the top ones that they would think for somebody my age. When they went and did an ultrasound and saw that I had an ovarian cyst, it was not a large one. It was only about 2 centimeters. But they were like, oh, well, it's just because it's all started for you. It's a fluke. It's fine. You shouldn't be in this much pain. That's what I was being told. You should not be in this much pain.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there thinking, yeah, I know. What are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
So it's been crazy. And then that was the time I had to, I was in the hospital. They admitted me into the pediatric floor of the hospital. They had me on narcotic pain medications, IV. It was intense, very intense. And I remember several OBGYNs refusing to come and look at my case. When I finally did get an OBGYN to come into my case, they ended up needing to do surgery. They had to go in, and when they went in, they realized that it wasn't just a 2 centimeter cyst, it was hemorrhagic. So it was full of blood and about to twist I had serious ovary torsion, and I almost lost my ovary at 11.
Wow.
So, those doctors who were saying, let's wait and see approach, that was very dangerous. Thankfully, I was able to get somebody to come and do it just in time. But even after that, I still had issues going on.
Okay, so tell us then about, like, this is like a really rude awakening to your womanhood in those early years. I know that you have a long story, so
Yes.
sort of tell us a little bit, briefly, and as much as you want to share, really only as much as you want to share, sort of the overview of how things progressed for you.
Right. So like I said, it started when I was 11, and you are dealing with those things as you grow into my teenage years. Like I'm dealing with all of that while also trying to be a teenager, and school didn't really work out. So all of those years, I'm still having debilitating pain around my periods. I don't have another cyst. I'm having doctors confused of why I am still in this much pain. Most of them are kind of brushing me off like I'm just being too dramatic about it.
Yeah.
But it gets to the point where I have to be homeschooled for high school. I cannot keep up. Then finally, I start going online, talking to other women, trying to figure out what is going on. And I hear the word endometriosis.
Yes.
So
That's what I'm thinking. That's what I'm thinking when you're
Yes.
talking about pain every month to that debilitating level.
Oh, so terrible.
We know now, unfortunately, doctors still are not so aware, but we know now that you've got to check that as your first line of,
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And the craziest part for me in my early 20s, once I did have that word, was taking it to doctors and them looking at me saying, oh, no, you don't have that. You're too young.
Yeah.
That's not a qualification of endo. Like there is no age limit. That's not a thing.
Yeah. So at what age were you officially diagnosed?
28.
Wow. But you knew beforehand you had it?
That's such an interesting thing, because now I look back and I can say, yes, I knew. I absolutely knew, and I did. But because you are going through so many different providers who have medical degrees, who are supposed to be the ones that you look to for those answers, I was very much struggling with believing myself about my own pain. I got to a point where I was begging my mother to take me to see a psychiatrist because I thought it must be in my head. There must be some. I was looking up Munchausen syndrome.
Yeah. It's terrible. I think endometriosis is probably one of the most debilitating menstrual cycle related conditions. And not only is it your physical experience that is so debilitating, it is the self-doubt, the self-judgment, the thinking you're crazy, the I must be a weak person because everyone's saying I shouldn't be in this much pain, but I am in this much pain. Maybe I just have a really low pain threshold. All the questions and the fact, and we know that it can take anywhere from 5 to 11 years for a woman to be diagnosed with
Yeah.
endometriosis, you obviously are really in that top
Yeah.
end of diagnosis. And it impacts so many elements of your life. And it is still so under recognized and misunderstood.
Absolutely. I mean, I had to fight just to get the medical care that I needed for so long that by the
Yeah.
time I did finally start getting that medical care, I'm also having to go back and heal all of the trauma that came from
Yes.
dealing with it.
It's
Um, it's intense. It's a lot. And even after being diagnosed, I was still having to fight for care.
okay. So
They,
talk to us then about that. What you would think would be a turning point. You've got
yeah.
the diagnosis, you've got a name, you've got recognition, but what happens next?
So I was going to a general OBGYN, and they ended up doing my first ablation surgery, which is, if you're not familiar, you know, kind of where they
Yeah.
go in and they burn out the endometriosis lesions. Um, I was still in pain after the surgery. After I recovered from the surgery, I was still having my pain with my periods.
Yeah.
It didn't help. And so my OBGYN at the time said, okay, you need to go see a specialist. And
Yeah.
so I was sent, and I did so much research trying to find really good recommended that specialists who from other women, you know, because I think that is the best marker for me for
Yeah.
a good recommendation for a physician is from their patients.
Yeah.
Other patients that tell me that they
Yeah.
had a good experience, that's going to be what sells me every
Yeah.
time. But I went to a specialist in Charlotte, North Carolina, which is a pretty large city.
Yeah.
And I is supposed to be one of the top accredited in the region. She did my first excision surgery and found that it was pretty bad. I mean, it had grown so much, and that's the other thing with endo when it takes so long to get it diagnosed.
Yeah.
All of that time, damage is happening.
Yeah.
Damage,
And
damage,
also,
damage.
I don't know if this is for you or not for you, and you can share if you want to or not, but just to let women who are listening know, part of the condition, part of the pain involved in endometriosis is that this endometrial lining grows outside of the uterus and can potentially grow over other organs or other muscle or ligaments, that these endometrial cells start to grow in other parts of the body. And that is one of the things that is so painful and sometimes so difficult to remove and
Mhm.
difficult to identify. So I don't know if that was your story. I don't know if you want to discuss
Yes,
that or not, but that is just to
that's a
let
huge
you
part,
know
actually. Yes.
why it is so painful. It's not just like you've got excess endometrial lining within the uterus. It's that it expands outside the uterus.
Yes, that's exactly right. That's one thing that I have learned as a patient with it is that endometriosis is not a baby box issue. This is a whole body disease. It really
Yeah,
is.
yeah.
They have found endometriosis tissue in the brain. They have found it growing around lungs. It can be anywhere. In my case, they found that it was growing very heavily on my bowels.
Wow.
So that was one of the things when I was trying to get diagnosed originally. I kept getting referred to gastro because I had so many gastro problems,
Yeah.
right? So that was very interesting. But then when they would go and do the colonoscopies and everything, they're like, everything looks fine. We see
Fine.
irritation. We don't know where it's coming from. It
Yeah.
was growing on the
Wow.
outside of my bowels.
Wow.
So that was just what the first surgeon found. After she did my surgery and got it, I was recovered. Still massive debilitating pain. It's like they couldn't get it all.
Yeah.
She swore she did. She was
Yeah.
like, "There's no way. There's no way. Like you must be having ghost pain."
Well, that's what I was going to say. They may say that because you've experienced pain for so
Right.
many years, your body is remembering the pain. It's like, God forbid, if you have
Absolutely.
an amputated limb, you have the sensation that you still have
Yes.
that limb there.
And
So
that is absolutely a thing. I mean,
yeah,
there is for sure some things that I've had that I would say were ghost pain.
yeah,
Um, but that's not what I was dealing with at the time.
yeah, yeah. And it's difficult. It's really difficult because if they say we removed everything,
Yeah.
your pain is memory pain, ghost pain. How do you know if it is or if it isn't?
Right. Right. And especially as a patient who you don't have your own medical background, of course, I really, I struggled with that because
Yeah,
I understood all the facts she was laying out made total sense to me.
yeah,
But in my gut, I knew that's not what it
yeah,
was.
yeah,
Something was still wrong.
yeah.
So it took even longer, more specialists going through. I finally ended up with a specialist in Greenville, South Carolina, Dr. Paul Miller. A man is amazing. He is
Yeah.
absolutely wonderful. But anyways, he found that going with my first surgery, not only did I have the endometriosis on outside of my bowels, it had grown so aggressively just in a very short, I can't remember exactly what the time span was, but I don't think it was more than a year.
Right.
In between the two surgeries, it had already grown back all over my bowels. I
Wow.
had it had adhered my ovaries to my outer pelvic wall.
Wow.
And my urinary tract system was also adhered to the back of my pelvic wall.
Wow.
So I was having tremendous pain,
Yeah.
tremendous pain.
Yeah.
They also found that my uterus was folded in on itself and upside down. And I still he cannot quite figure out either uh, how that was missed
Yeah. Yeah.
in the surgeries before. But I mean, there's clearly a lot going on in
Yeah.
there
Can I
if
just
it's
ask you
growing.
a technical question? Just because women want to know, understand this for themselves.
Yes.
Is your excruciating pain, debilitating pain, only around your period or is it throughout the whole month?
At this point, it was the whole month.
Yeah.
It was the whole month. I definitely, in the earlier stages when I was younger, it definitely did follow more of a cycle rhythm. But I think at some point it just grew so aggressively that it it didn't need to be around when it
Yeah.
was trying to shed. It was pulling on my organs all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I'm hoping, because we're talking to you and you seem fairly jolly and happy, that there is some type of good progression with this
There is.
story. So
There is.
I want you to share that, and then I've got a whole bunch of questions I'm going to ask you. But I think maybe I'm trying to think which way to go now. You know what? Let's stop for a second and let me just ask you before you share with us your sort of the next piece of the journey. Two things that are coming up for me here. One
Mhm.
is the amount of time, energy, and effort that you had to put in to being proactive, to consistently standing up for yourself despite everything, to do the research, to find the doctors, to find the practitioners. And I know that this is your journey, but I know that women with endometriosis or other undiagnosed women health conditions are doing exactly the same.
Mhm.
How do you manage with that? How does that not just beat you down day after day, and that you still have the strength to say, I've got to find answers here, and I'm not just going to listen to the doctors and just somehow figure out a way to get on with my life?
Jacqueline, I'm going to be very honest with you. There was several times where my mental health was really terrible.
I can
Um,
imagine.
I was suicidal several times.
I can
Several.
imagine.
Um, I am not unique in that. There are so many women who are dealing with that.
Yeah.
And because it is so much harder to fight in these systems, because we are being told just at 11 that we're too dramatic,
Yeah.
the mental health that weighs, or
Yeah.
the way that weighs on your mental health for women,
Yeah.
that's the epidemic that needs to be fixed.
Yeah.
I am so lucky because of my mother. My mother is the strongest woman. If it was not for that woman,
Yeah.
I wouldn't be here.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you about her role in all of this, because obviously, as a young adult, before you're at the age of, consent or where you can go into doctor appointments by yourself, a parent, a guardian, someone needs to be there for you.
Right.
So I wanted to ask, who was that person and how did that manifest? And her struggle to watch her daughter go through it.
Yeah. Especially now that I am a mother, I really think back on how much my mother went through with me. She absolutely was my biggest advocate. She easily could have taken what those doctors said, put me in therapy, and
Yeah.
that's it. She was working. She was not a stay-at-home mom. She worked full time. There were so many times that I came and laid on a pallet underneath her desk at work because I couldn't go to school, but she didn't want to lose her job because it had been so many days. That woman kept fighting. She looked at doctors who would tell her that I was being too dramatic and say, we're going to go find somebody else.
Yeah.
She kept looking, she kept fighting, and she believed me.
Yeah.
Even when I didn't believe me, my mom believed me.
Yeah. I am so honored that you're sharing that and saying all of that, because we'll get to it later on. But this podcast is all about those things that I want my daughters to know. But having daughters means that you yourself are a mother. And being a mother, sometimes your kids drive you crazy. Sometimes you just want an easy solution. And sometimes, as many parents do, you have to fight for your child because you know that and it's that gut intuition which you can't explain for yourself and for your parent, that she just knew and you knew that there was a deeper answer, and the answers that you were getting from the healthcare practitioners were not sufficient.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's that intuition that is there. And I would also have to put that my mom didn't have the best experiences with her menstrual cycles either.
Right.
Endometriosis is absolutely a hereditary link. There
Yeah.
are things that go with that. So I would say when it comes to getting diagnosed with endometriosis and in this field, mothers paying attention to your own cycles and then watching that's so important. It's so important. That is going to give you so much more information than even research can on certain things, because it can be very unique to the women in your line.
Yeah. So you talked a little bit about, you mentioned their research, but I do want to ask you about support groups and the information that is available, and sort of what is there? What information is available? What research is there? What support groups are available for other women who are going through it, sharing information? What did you find that existed?
So a lot of Facebook support groups. A lot of Facebook support groups. You can find some really great ones on there. Nancy Snook is a very popular one. It's a little controversial in the world whether you kind of a deep spot in that. There are a lot of resources available, though. You may find more in other places. And like I said, when it comes to healthcare with women, especially with endometriosis, what I have found was that the support groups were integral, because that's where you are finding out other people who are going through the same thing. Because there's so many times you'll talk to a doctor and they're like, I've never heard of this. But I would go into a support group on Facebook, post what was going on, and immediately have so many women say, I dealt with that. I dealt with this.
Yeah.
And every once in a while you get somebody in there who goes, I dealt with this. My doctor found this. Tell them to look for this.
Wow. Yeah.
So that's going to be a big one.
And do you think, this is just coming up for me now as we're talking, that there is a geographical difference between what's available? So in certain states or in certain areas, is there more awareness, more trained professionals? If you're, God forbid, stuck in some state or some, area where there isn't access to the information, are you sort of going to struggle more than maybe if you're living in other parts?
That is actually very interesting that you asked that. I was blessed to have a daughter, but growing up, most of my endo care was done in Charlotte, North Carolina, in a bigger
Right.
city. That's where I grew up. That's where I was raised. I moved to Rock Hill, which is about 30 minutes south. Did most of my maternal care and everything with my birth through that. That was the most horrific pregnancy. I was admitted several different times on the L&D floor. I should say, I also later found out that I have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome,
Mm-hmm.
which is a connective tissue disorder. So that had more to do with what was going on with my pregnancy. However, a lot of the issues that I encountered would not have happened in a larger city hospital.
Yeah.
I ended up I ended up in HELP syndrome and in the ICU after she was born. She was 6 weeks early. Thankfully, their NICU was fantastic,
Yeah.
but the care that I received was not great. They ended up leaving a piece of placenta in for 2 weeks that was missed. When I came back to the hospital to deal with it, they refused to come and see me,
Wow.
basically being told that I must just be wanting more of the pain medication.
So
That
again,
they offered.
that same repeated narrative 20 odd years
Oh
later,
yeah,
you're hearing the
even
same
with the
thing again and
diagnosis.
again. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, and I that the experience that I have had in Rock Hill, South Carolina, with healthcare has been scary. Quite
Yeah.
scary. We're
Yeah.
ranging from, I had a doctor tell me that if I would just get pregnant, my endometriosis would be cured. Those words.
Right.
Um, Spoiler alert, it made it worse. Um, and I was told, oh, I believe there were several times that I was just straight up told like I was being hysterical.
Yeah.
Um, there are definitely doctors who want to help. There, I had a wonderful OBGYN down here, but when they are working in a system that is so held back and so broken, even they can't do much
Yeah.
to help.
Yeah.
Um, it
And
was
I
really
think
really
again,
bad.
I think the point of this is to say that it is not equal across the board in any country.
Absolutely not.
You're going to have regions with really great doctors, really great coverage, really great care. You're going to have areas and regions where it is less so.
Yes,
Um, that unfortunately is the geographical lottery. But one of the things I do want to say that we do know for sure is that women's healthcare is deeply, profoundly misunderstood. Still today, despite the advances and despite the awareness and despite the increased money in research and understanding, we still know that doctors who have gone through that standard medical healthcare training, all the different years and the residencies and the this and the that, and all the different processes and steps along
yeah,
the way, still there is a really big gap in how they understand and relate to women's health
absolutely.
conditions.
And I don't know. It's interesting. I don't know if you've seen this, but Massachusetts actually is in the process of passing new laws that are going to make it more it, make it to where providers actually have to get more education on endometriosis and these things. And it's
Amazing.
so sad. It's so sad that we have to pass laws to make providers pay attention to something that involves 1 in 10 women.
Yeah.
And not even just, that's just the endo. I mean, thinking about women's health as a whole.
Yeah.
So but I am very excited about that, and I hope that the rest of the states will follow Massachusetts' lead. But looking at different countries such as Canada or the UK, they have much better resources for
Yeah.
women with endometriosis than we do in the US. Like
Yeah.
worlds better.
Yeah. Okay. So tell us then, sort of, maybe give us some hope of sort of what happened, what changed, where did you find some treatment options, some
Yes.
easing of your symptoms? Sort of what happened?
So there are several different ways that doctors will go in to try to treat endo, but I have to say across the board in my own experience and my friends, things that I've known, excision surgery is absolutely the most effective,
Yeah,
short
yeah,
of a hysterectomy. My story got much better when I started having my excision surgeries. I did end up having to have one ovary removed because it had grown, the endo
yeah.
had grown so much around it. I was miraculously able to get pregnant. I was actually told, even after they adjusted my uterus, that I would still need IVF, but God said different. And the first try after actually recovering from that corrective surgery,
Wow,
we
wow.
magically got pregnant.
Yeah,
And
that
she
that
is,
that that is a real blessing. That's a real
oh
miracle
yes,
because that
for
doesn't
sure.
often happen.
My specialist to this day will still call her the miracle baby,
Baby. Yeah,
because he was the one who was like, "You're gonna need IVF. You're gonna need
yeah,
something." But after that, and my birth story, all of that being so dramatic, I had no qualms with saying, "Let's get rid of this hysterectomy." As soon as
yeah.
I got my hysterectomy, I got my life back, and so
Really?
that is something I love my daughter. I will never, ever be sorry for having my daughter.
Yeah.
However, I want the providers who are worried about making such a drastic decision for a woman's health if they have not had children or whatever their circumstances are.
Yeah.
I begged for a hysterectomy and I was
Really?
not given that option because I had not had children yet. Even though
They refused because they wanted to give you the option to biologically give birth.
right. And even being told that it was highly unlikely that I could get pregnant at the time, I was still denied the treatment that would have given me my life back because of that.
That's so fascinating.
Yeah.
And can you explain that? Do you know why that was the case? Is it because they thought, well, why do you think that was?
I I think that we are dealing with a side of healthcare that, especially now, right, currently with laws changing,
Yeah.
um, there is I'm trying to word this and not be too
Not get
brazen
too
here.
political. Yes, not
Yes.
get too
Um,
political.
but I think that doctors are scared to
Yeah.
give proper care. They're scared of the ramifications that will
Yeah.
come for them.
Yeah.
Um, and I think there's also just we're still dealing with centuries of internalized
Yeah.
thoughts and limiting beliefs that still need to be changed and why these conversations need to happen.
Yeah. I wonder if I can challenge you with a theory, and please tell me if I'm totally wrong. Um, is it possible the doctors thought that, again, you're being irrational?
Mm,
They don't want you to take such a drastic move and to sort of have a finalized, sort of non-reversible
right.
outcome before you've had the opportunity to have kids.
Absolutely. I think that's a lot of it. And I think it is a huge decision. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But what these doctors are not thinking about is that I lived with that every day
For years.
for years. I could not work a regular job. I did not
Yeah.
have an income. I did not have a life.
Life. Yeah. Yeah.
So, and
And
as we talked
and
about that
yeah.
mental health weight
Yeah.
of it.
And obviously, it's amazing you have your own biological daughter that you carried, but we also know there are other ways to
Absolutely.
have
Yes.
children.
And I was set on that. I knew I still wanted to have children. I was just going to adopt. That was my
Yeah.
plan.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I was told no. And then even when I did finally get to have my hysterectomy, I still had to get my husband to sign a piece of paper and give me permission.
Yeah.
So,
Don't we
Yeah.
love that?
I believe I don't think he signed that. I believe I crumpled it up and threw it at him. But
Yeah. Look, it
the
definitely has
point that
to
it
be
was
a joint
asked for.
decision. It has to be a joint decision, of course. If
Right.
you have a partner, a life partner, it needs to be a joint decision.
Sure.
But get his official
Yeah.
confirmation. Um, so what you're saying to me, and I really want to push you on this, for women who really are struggling and who are listening to your story and are saying, "Oh my gosh, this is me." Is hysterectomy the only real long-term solution for this? What are the options available out there for women who are going through this? And obviously, you had, I hope it's fair for me to say you had a very, is it fair to say an
Extreme.
extreme? Is that an okay word to use?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I would definitely say that my case was more extreme on that end. But there are so many women who are dealing with it and that were close to the same things, the
Yeah.
same debilitating type of pain, the
Yeah.
same life changing. And for them, I would say yes. Hysterectomy is probably going to be the best way long term. However, there are really good other options. Excision surgery did help me, and I think it helps a lot of other women that it doesn't grow quite as aggressively. If
Yeah.
mine had not grown as aggressively as it did, I would have been fine just doing excision surgery.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to do one every year.
Yeah.
Most women, I believe, can go longer in between their excision
Right.
surgeries before their symptoms reoccur. There's also been different uh, advances in medications. There's Orlissa now. They're trying to come up with different things. And a lot of that, it just depends on your body. For me, Orlissa didn't feel great.
Yeah.
But for some women I know, it was fantastic.
Yeah.
So it's really, you have to, I think the biggest thing is finding a specialist or a provider that you can really talk to, that is
I
not going
agree.
to try to rush you out the door, that is going to let you ask your questions, and that never, ever, ever dismisses your pain.
Yeah. Yes. And sometimes, as you've expressed, that can take a while to find. I want to just ask you about the oral contraceptive pill. How is that seen in the treatment range, if it's an appropriate treatment range or not? Because
Sure.
people would say that, that sort of dulls the hormones, dulls the whole reproductive cycle.
Yeah.
Is that a helpful option?
It's interesting. Even before I was diagnosed at 28, they had me just because I was having issues around my period. I was on the pill from 11. And I've done Depo-Provera. I have done so many different things. At one point, they had prescribed Lupron. So yes, there are other options. However, um, don't use Lupron. just just
Right.
it is there. I think another thing that is an issue for women is that not only are we behind in terms of care and recognizing it and diagnosis, but in terms of treatments,
Yes.
how these medications actually work in a woman's body is not, it's not being researched enough. It's
Yes.
not being
Yes.
worked on.
Yeah. And did you ever look at more of a functional medicine approach or more of a natural approach? Sort of, are there options available for maybe women who have it more moderately?
Yeah.
Is there anything that is available within the non-pharmaceutical?
Absolutely. I did not find as many things um as I was actively going through most of mine, but in my later years and recently, I have found so many different herbal remedies, things that you can use. That is probably, I think that's an area that is highly underutilized in medicine
Yeah,
today.
yeah,
And I think that in the ways that women's bodies works, there are several that are very, very helpful. Interestingly enough, and I'm not sure how a lot of people would feel about this, but the thing that I used that was the absolute best for my pain was THC.
Okay. Tell us what that is.
So THC is what is going to be in the marijuana plant.
Okay.
And it actually goes into the cannabinoid receptors in your body. And the interesting thing about women's bodies is that, and how this helps with menstrual pain and everything else, so much more than, say, even Advil or something else, is because women have so many of our cannabinoid receptors in our pelvic cavity.
Interesting.
So I actually started finding out that in other states where it was legal, that doctors were even prescribing that to women to help. It was one of the top things that they were actually
Wow.
finding success with for women's pain in California.
Wow.
So
But,
there's
let, but,
definitely
let, but
herbal.
I just want to clarify, this is for pain management. It's not
Yes.
for treating the
No.
initial cause of the problem, which is, again, the pain management is big and it's major and
Yes.
women need that, but it's not actually healing the real problem.
As far as I know, I don't think so, but
Yeah.
they have been doing some very interesting research on it lately. It does tend to have healing properties for women in different areas. But I don't want to
Amazing.
speak too much to
Yeah,
that.
sure,
I'm
sure,
not an
sure.
expert on that. But there is some interesting research coming out with how it can actually help heal some
Yeah,
aspects. I'm
yeah,
not so sure specifically with the endometriosis, but I know
yeah,
there are different aspects of women's health that it can heal,
yeah.
um, for
What
sure.
are the common things that women with endometriosis or in the support groups, for example, that you're hearing that women are struggling with? We've heard your story. It is heartbreaking, and it is, tragic that you had to go through this. Um, what sort of the common themes that come up in the support groups, common themes that come up in the endo community?
For sure, the top one is going to be trying to find a specialist that you feel like isn't dismissing your pain.
Yeah,
I would say that's the biggest one in women, or not just dismissing pain, but your quality of life, not dismissing your
mm,
quality of life. You need a
yeah,
specialist who actually understands that. It's very difficult, especially in certain areas. It can be really hard to find a specialist at all for
yeah,
endometriosis, but then to actually find one that understands treatment, understands how it can actually affect the body and more than just the physical is
yeah,
very important. Um, Also, I think that a lot of people don't realize how debilitating it can be.
yeah.
There's a lot of women struggling with earning an income because they cannot keep up
Wow.
with work. That one's huge,
Yeah,
huge. And then the women who do, or even being a mom, even trying to keep up with your children that you already
yeah,
have. It's so much.
yeah,
That is the thing I see probably the most often, besides looking for a specialist.
yeah, yeah. Um, okay. One of the things I wrote down that I do want to mention here is the evidence of the N of one, where in the medical healthcare field, medical healthcare practitioners, doctors, specialists, they go on research, and research is a complicated thing to do. You need a big pool of people, you need the funding to do it, you need the time, you need the control group. But what is
Mm-hmm.
coming up more and more, especially in the functional medicine world, but in medicine in general, is the understanding of the N of one, that you are your own research project. And even though you are one person, as we start to gather these stories of the N of one,
Mm-hmm.
we start to actually create an observed research pool of lived and observed experiences. And
Mm-hmm.
we need to take more, the medical community needs to take that way more seriously. And it's very possible that as AI in medicine and using AI in this type of research that can, gather all different data
Right.
points in a very fast way from all different locations. That is something that I know that medical technology is talking about. This is
Right.
gathering all these ends of ones so that you can actually have really good, reliable
Yes.
information and data. But did you feel in your journey that you were that sort of N of one, your own
Yeah.
case study, and that and I'm sure that when you find these communities and you find these groups, all of a sudden you find a tribe and you realize that you're not going through it alone.
And it's so validating to find other women saying your same stories, especially when me from a young age, literally thinking, am I making this up in my head somehow? Like, do I not realize that I'm doing it, but I'm doing it? How is to hear other, and I'm like, well, I can't, they're going through the same thing. It can't be. And I remember so many times being in a doctor's office or in a doctor's appointment, talking to a doctor. Well, I've never seen this. And I'm just sitting there going, I wish you would just read like 5 posts in my support group.
Yeah, maybe the
That's
doctors need to join the support group so they can see.
so many times I was just like, I just want you to just look at this. Just look.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But because it's not an official research, because it doesn't come
Right.
from an official organization, because it hasn't been peer reviewed, it's not taken seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's a shame. It really is.
yeah. Wow, Jessa, I am so honored that you are sharing your story because it is such a deeply personal one. You've gone through so much, but the fact that you're sharing it, I know it's going to resonate with so many women, and you really are helping so many women by sharing your story. Um, as we come to the end of our conversation together, the question that I ask every one of my guests is this podcast is called Things That I Want My Daughters to Know. I want to know what you want your daughter to know. And if you can even find one thing, because I know there's so much that you want to share with her, but is there one thing that you really want your daughter, the next generation of daughters, to really take away from your experience and from what you've been through?
Um, I would have to say that your intuition, listen to it. It's
Yeah,
there for a reason. And don't ever make yourself smaller to make somebody else more comfortable.
yeah. Wow.
That for sure.
Yeah, that's really, really profound. Wow. This has been a real journey, and I'm so happy that you've shared your story with us. I'm so
So
happy that
much for
I've
having me.
got to know you and to hear you. Where can people find you if they want to connect with you, if they
Yeah.
want to ask your advice, if they want to, find out more about endo support communities or, specialists? Where can people find you?
So I'm on Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram. On Facebook and Instagram, I believe I am just Jessa Reynolds, um, or it will be the Inner Grace Project. And then on TikTok, it's Jessa underscore IGP for Inner Grace Project. I'm kind of just, my Inner Grace Project is talking about healing out loud and sharing what I'm going through as I recover.
Yeah. Well, you're on a real mission, and I really wish you so much success with it because and I'm so happy to see you with so much energy and a smile on your face and so able to sit and talk to us because I can imagine that a few years ago that would have been really
It was hard for
inconceivable.
sure. This
Yeah.
has been quite surreal having a life again and being 34 years old and in so many ways feeling like I'm experiencing life for the first time.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. It's such an inspiration. And I really hope that women reach out to you because I know you
I
have
just
so much information to share with them and to support them. So, really,
absolutely, if any
thank
women
you.
need anything about pointing in the right direction, where to start looking, I absolutely would love to help them.
Yeah, amazing. Well, thank you for sharing your story. Really, it's a real honor. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Endometriosis is something that so many women suffer with. I think, Jesse, you said 1 in 10, which is just a phenomenal number. But we are not talking about it. We know there is not the care that women require. So I'm so happy that you have joined us today. Reach out to Jessa if you need any more help. And I look forward to seeing you again at another episode of the Things I Want My Daughters to Know podcast.